What's up, guys? It is Corey from Super Comic Guru 9000, and welcome to my review of Attack on Titan, Episode 15. This was kind of a really weird and creepy episode, but I also kind of like what they're doing towards the end of it by adding in this sort of little mystery element. And first and foremost, this episode really had to deal with one central character, which was Hanji Zoe, who was introduced a couple episodes ago and was more formally introduced in the last episode. And we really get to see how insane she really is in this series. And she has this sort of odd fascination with everything with the Titans. And we really get to learn why in this episode, but there's a lot of little stuff leading up to it. First and foremost, we get to see that Eren is finally going with the Recon Corps. They're finally riding out to this giant abandoned castle. This is when we finally get that big, huge flashback moment with Hanji Zoe, who sits down to talk with Eren. And the build-up to the scene is very funny because before this even happens, you can see that everybody seems kind of annoyed when she's around, and they know that when she starts to talk about Titans, she never really shuts up about it. So they all sort of leave the room and just leave Eren there with her. And she talks about how they captured the two Titans and how they've been experimenting on them. And that's when they go into this flashback where you get to see they're back at the city. And they have these two Titans which are like wrapped up in all of these like chains and all of these like ropes. And they're also like have all these nails all over their body, and they're just completely pinned to the ground. And we get to see that essentially she's trying to communicate with them, and she's got some balls, because I wouldn't even want to get close to these things. And there are a lot of points during this flashback scene where they almost literally like bite her head right off. And it's really creepy, and I gotta give her credit for being ballsy. And they do a lot of interesting experiments here. They test to see how the sunlight actually affects the Titans in their bodies. They actually cover them up in tents. This is when we learn that they're actually a little weaker without the sunlight. Hanji starts to make things really personal when she decides to name the Titans, and she does so in kind of this really creepy fashion. She essentially equates the Titans to cannibals, and she starts to talk about Sawney Bean, who, if you want to know who he is, read fucking a history book or something, or watch this episode, because she goes into a whole explanation about how this dude essentially just ate a lot of people, eventually got caught. The next experiment's really freaky when they're trying to figure out how to actually hurt the Titans and destroy them. And you can see she's the one, she's actually constantly stabbing them in the eyes and stuff, and it's really freaking her out. But no one around them is even thinking that. And that's, of course, what makes this character so interesting, is the fact that she actually has this sort of deep connection with these freakish monsters. And her only explanation for it really is that she's been fighting the Titans for a very long time. And then eventually she reached this one point where she realized just, you know, things aren't always as they appear. And there's also this other point she brings up is when you like cut off their limbs and then you can actually pick them up. They're surprisingly light for being how big they are. And maybe this is another clue to how these Titans work. The big shock at the end is when Hanji figures out that both Sawney and Bean were actually killed. And they rush back to the city, and we get to see that they were both executed by an unknown assailant. And she is just flipping all of her shit. And you can really tell how much he actually cared about the Titans. And then you have Captain Irvin, who comes in, and he's talking right next to Eren, and he's like, so who do you think the real enemy is, man? Just to fucking, like, fuck with him a little bit. And then he just walks off. So another interesting episode of Attack on Titan that definitely delved into the character of Hanji this week and getting to see her fascination with the Titans. I thought it was really interesting. It was, like I said, very disturbing the way she, like, described the story of Sawney Bean by giving them the names. And you could even see the reactions of the soldiers around him. One of them was even, like, thrown up in the corner. It was hilarious. But I can't wait to see what's going to happen with this whole bit with somebody actually killing Sawney and Bean. And why they're doing it. I don't know. It's really interesting. Like, there's obviously a really big motive here. And then that little bit with Irvin at the end was really interesting, too. So I don't know what to make of it quite yet. So I can't wait till we get back to next week, because hopefully it looks like they're going to go out and do a little more action. Because I would appreciate a little more action in these series. So like I said, pretty decent episode. A lot of really creepy moments. And getting to learn a little bit more about the Recon Corps, who, according to Eren, are a bunch of freaks. And I think that's pretty hilarious. So I'm going to give this episode a 7. It wasn't a fantastic episode, but it kept my attention. And getting to learn a little bit more about Hanji was interesting. She's a really interesting chick. So how did you guys feel about this week's episode of Attack on Titan? You can let me know with your comments below. And you guys know the drill by now. Before you leave, make sure to give this video a thumbs up. It's one of the best ways to support our videos. We'll see you next time, guys. Super Comic Guru 9000. Out.